So I'm curious to know how you guys feel about just how divided our country is. Of course, I'm not talking to anybody but fellow Americans on this one. Not that I don't care about the opinions that my friends from foreign nations have, but unless you live here, you pay taxes here, and you're part of this structure and this economy and this culture, broad culture, I don't feel you're necessarily qualified to have an opinion. Just like I'm not going to tell you how life in Canada or Mexico or Switzerland or Budapest or Nigeria is. Just because I go somewhere doesn't mean that I understand how everything works. I remember when I was young, I remember seeing, I had guys in school that, I had a friend of mine in a high school that was a devout communist. He read Karl Marx and he talked about how wonderful communism could be. And similarly, I've known plenty of American exceptionalists. America can do no wrong. Capitalism all the way. Well, I got news for you. We don't live in a capitalist society anymore. We live in a corporatist plutocracy. Utilize Google on that one if you're unfamiliar. We live in a corporatist plutocracy. So for all of you that talk about the ills of modern day capitalism, understand that modern day capitalism doesn't exist in the United States. It doesn't. Maybe a sliver of it exists in a small business model sense, mom and pop bakery, advance their longest standing employees, give them better salaries, etc. You see a lot of that in private business. I guess there's a shred of capitalism, but of course many private businesses grow and they become powerful corporations, even on a smaller scale. But that's neither here nor there. I'm more curious and concerned about scrolling the Facebook feed for 10 minutes and seeing a dozen posts about white supremacy. And if it isn't white supremacy being talked about, it's these I'll get to the phony patriots in a minute. But this modern day white supremacy scare, it is really reminiscent, for those of you that were alive and old enough to remember this, in the 1980s, the Satanic Panic, where everybody and their brother was a Satanist. The baker down the street was a Satanist. This daycare center is being investigated because they might be sacrificing children to Satan. For starters, in defense of Satanism, despite the ugly word to many people, most people I've met from that world do not believe in harming children, do not believe in harming animals, hurting people. It's fair to say that Anton LaVey, although he plagiarized most of his writings from Aleister Crowley and a few other people, never advocated for human sacrifice, child abuse, anything like that, and nor did most other formally recognized satanic orders, if you will. So largely, the Satanic Panic was very overblown, right? You had people being accused of being, people in Congress being accused of being Satanists and shit. It was rather insane. I was young, but I remember it. I remember being worried because I was young. It's like, oh, shit, I'm 10, 12, 14 years old, whatever. Somebody gonna try to kill me and drink my blood. Of course, I knew it was gobbledygook and didn't really entertain it. But I see the same thing today, where everybody's all of a sudden a neo-Nazi. Everybody's a white supremacist. If you don't accept, an open border and a transgender future for your child or something like that, you're a Nazi. It's like, man, the world isn't that black and white. And the same thing holds true on the other side. I'm not going to pick on this unilaterally. The two groups that I hate the most are the radical progressives, or what some call the neo-commies, But I equally, and in some ways in a greater sense, hate the pseudo-patriots. These fucking arrogant assholes that hide behind the American flag and hide behind their guns. And, ain't nobody coming for my guns. The fuck they ain't. Except they're not going to knock on the door. The ATF's not going to come knocking on your door. And, Mr. Beverly, we're here to get this weapon, this weapon, this weapon, and this weapon. It's not going to happen that way. Because the same entities that will govern gun confiscation govern everything. Now, you can sit there and tell me, oh, I'm not going to surrender my weapons. And sure, if the ATF knocked on my door and said, give me your guns, I'm not going to do it either. But that's not how they're going to operate. They're going to starve you out. The trucks and the trains will stop rolling. And when you're starving and you can't feed your children, and then they knock on the door, Mr. Beverly, the bread truck will be here Wednesday. Let's have the guns if you want to eat, if you want to feed those kids. Guess what? You'll give them. You'll give them up in a minute. Every last fucking one of you. I don't care what you say. If it comes down to handing in your guns or watching your children starve, you'll give them the guns. And you'll give them your gold, and you'll give them your fucking silver. You'll give them everything of value. If they want a piece of your ass, you'll bend over and beg them to use Vaseline. Fact. So you pseudo-patriots, you're no better than these neo-commies. Every last one of you assholes lacks the courage of your fucking convictions. Well, if shit gets any worse, we're going to mobilize. Fuck you, the enemy's through the gate. He's at your back door and he wants some. What are you going to do? The world is not black and white. It ain't neo-Nazis and neo-commies. I got news for you people. I've traveled, many of you know this, I've traveled all over the world playing music and doing other things. I've met racialists, racists. They're not afraid to tell you how they feel. An out and out white supremacist will tell you why he or she feels supreme. This whole notion of everybody's a covert neo-Nazi, and I realize what it comes down to. It's anybody who disagrees with the progressive left. Now, I'm not picking on you classical liberals. I miss classical liberals. I've often called myself, at least years ago, a classical liberal. I don't call myself shit anymore. I am labelless. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. You know what I am? I'm an asshole. I'm an asshole who's sick and tired of the stupidity. The black and white, the one-dimensional thinking. Do you guys want a civil war? Are we really going to be out there in the streets killing each other? Because we're convinced that everybody's either a neo-Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer or a neo-commie and a neo-commie sympathizer? Because that's where we're headed. I hate to say it, but that's where we're headed. And I know some of you fake patriots, you pseudo-patriots, you're pissed right now. Fuck you, Beverly. No, fuck you. Where are you when the modern-day brown shirts are beating the shit out of people in the middle of the streets? Where are you? Why aren't you? I hear all this talk. And the neo-commies, you're no better. You're no better. All this talk about we're going to taking down the American system and rebuilding it with some, but this time it'll be a true utopia. We've never seen true socialism. We've never seen true communism. We'll do it right this time. Yeah, sure. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, man. I barely graduated high school. I didn't go to college, thank Christ. I probably would be one of these brainwashed fucking retards if I had. I taught myself to think for myself. I'm not always right. I've done a lot of learning. I've been wrong plenty. But I know one thing. We're not doing this right. We're not having the right conversation about anything. That old adage, united we stand, divided we fall, is pretty true. A country like this cannot stand with a polarized populace. It can't happen. So you are watching the disintegration of America. And we're all contributing to it on some level. I'm no exception. You know, I'm talking about this shit on Facebook right now. You're watching me talk about it on Facebook right now. Right? I'm not out there doing anything about it. I'm guilty. But I do care, and I am being pushed, and I don't like being pushed. I don't judge anybody at face value. I don't give a shit if you're white, black, Asian, native, Martian, gay, straight, non-binary, Christian, Jew, Muslim, atheist, Republican, Democrat, whatever. I don't give a shit what you are. Unless you're a golfer. If you're a fucking golfer, I do have prejudices against you because most of you guys are friends with bankers. I don't like bankers either. But my point, people are individuals. That's why identity politics, that's why collectivism is dangerous. I don't care if it's on the left or the right, it's dangerous thinking. Human beings are individuals. And if we don't start putting some emphasis on that, if we don't start looking at people for individuals and saying, well, gee, you know, he or she, they feel this way, but does that make them a neo-commie? Does that make them a neo-Nazi? If there's no proof of that, if this just comes down to opinion or education or exposure to ideas, take it for what it is. It's just an individual. And they're in a particular place within their journey, as are you, as are me, as am I, rather, as is everyone. It's a journey. We feel certain ways, we learn certain things. Sometimes we meet people and we uncover knowledge about something and it changes our perception. Some people grow better, some people grow worse. It doesn't matter. People are people. Individuals. There's nothing wrong with being a black Republican or a gay Republican. There's nothing wrong with being a Southern Democrat. There's nothing wrong with having friends, traveling. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done, man. I'm very blessed. I've traveled around. I've left my town, my state, my country. I've traveled and I've experienced culture. I've experienced people. I've taken them as individuals. It's made me a better person. Same thing with for example, with Mexico. I don't know that a wall, that the wall is or isn't the answer. I don't know. But something has to give with our lax border, and here's why. Okay, nobody wants to talk about this. This is the fucking elephant in the room. Get ready, brace yourself, sit down. Here's the thing, okay? We hear about what our lax border does to our border towns. Go to fucking El Paso, right? Any of these border towns. Witness the cartels, the shootings, the home invasions, the robbery, the rape, the murder, the kidnapping, the sex trafficking. We know what it does to our country. And we know what it does to the poor folks who are making a desperate leap for America. Two things, though. You have to ask yourself, number one, if America was this country comprised largely of neo-Nazis, why in the fuck are 3,000 people a day from Mexico trying to get over here? Does that make sense? Doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Furthermore, here's the elephant in the room I was talking about. Okay, Mexico. We hear about the damage that our lax border does to our country. How about the damage that our lax border does to Mexico? I care about the Mexican people. I don't want to see the Mexican people enslaved to a tyrannical, crooked government that serves the goddamn drug cartels. I don't want to see Mexicans oppressed, hurt. I care about the Mexican people. And so long as the United States has a lax border, a shit ass excuse for a border, and the Mexican people have that Hail Mary run that they can make, guess what they won't do? They won't collectivize. They won't stand up for themselves. They won't stand up against the cartel and the crooked government, and their country will get worse and worse and worse. That's the conversation I don't hear you motherfuckers having on Facebook. I hear you Trumpites talking about the wall. The wall might work. The wall might not work. I'm smart enough to admit that I don't know. But something has to give. And I not only say that for our country and the towns along our border, I say that very much for the Mexican people and the benefit and betterment of their country and the preservation of their culture as well. So I dare any of you motherfuckers to call me a neo-Nazi. Furthermore, back to the pseudo-patriots. Yeah, we got problems. This country is under attack. Okay? From within and from without. I'll be the first to admit that America has its flaws and has had a very tarnished, fucked up past. So has everywhere else. Okay? This idea that these greedy white men came over here and made this beautiful utopia horrible is a bit of a misnomer. That's not just, I'm not giving the founders of this country a pass at some of their beliefs and some of their practices at all. Come on. Find me a corner of the world where human beings have not factioned and warred and fought for territory. You know? Look at the Lakota and the Pawnee. They fought over the Black Hills in that area for centuries before any of them ever saw a white man. Right? There's no slavery in America today. Well, economic slavery is real. But that economic slavery doesn't discriminate. Economic slavery wants to keep everybody down except that small elite faction, which if I were to get into that, I'd be zuckered into Facebook jail. You'd never see me on here again. So I'll go for the war rather than the battle. Leave that one alone. But you look around and it's relative. There is still slavery in the world. There's still slavery in Africa. There's still slavery in parts of Asia. There's human trafficking. There's people born into sexual slavery on this continent. And some of them come to this country. But if you compare America today to America 200 plus years ago, 150 years ago, we have made some strides. We have made the Constitution and the Bill of Rights apply to everybody. You cannot discriminate against a person because of what they are in this country, with the sole exception of white. You can say no whites allowed at this meeting, no whites allowed at this restaurant, no whites allowed. White people are the devil. You can fuck with white people all day long and you'll never get kicked off of Facebook. Say it about any other ethnic group or race and it's game over. Can't do it. But is that wise? Is it wise to alienate people? Because what I see it doing is I have seen centrist people get pushed hard right in the last 2 years. And I'm not talking about Trump people. People don't give a fuck about Donald Trump. They're just tired of being called Nazis and bigots and Archie Bunkers and this and that and the other. And it's like, you call somebody something, you tell somebody they're a piece of shit enough, they start to fucking believe you. Or if they don't believe you, they're going to punch you in the fucking mouth. Sooner or later, right? It's no different. And it makes me sad because, I judge a devil by his deeds. I don't give a shit what you are, who you are, where you come from, what color you are, who you fuck, whether or not you believe in God. Those are all things either you can't control or it's none of my business. Why would I care? I just care about how you and I can coexist, whether I have to be around you for 5 minutes or 15 years. That's what's important to me. Now that said, the double standards are grotesque. You know, I'm proud of all my ancestry. I'm proud of my Scotch-Irish roots, the Beverley family, and the native blood that Daddy's family married into. I'm proud of my mom's Serbian lineage. I'm not ashamed of anything that I am. Just that I'm not ashamed of having some native blood in me. And for all you racial purists, yeah, go ahead, write me off. You know, I'm a breed, right? So what? But I ain't ashamed of my white side neither. I come from good people. My ancestors never owned slaves. We came over here my dad's family came over here in the early 1704, that I can trace it back to, as indentured servants to the British, Scottish farmers, indentured servants to the Brits. My great-great-grandfather, William Beverley, 9 generations back, or whatever the fuck it was thrown in jail for speaking out against the King of England. He just gave an opinion about the King of England. Did 2 years in jail for it. Over here. They didn't ship him back. They locked him up here. You know? My mom's a second-generation American, Eastern European roots. Her family fought like hell to get over here. I'm not ashamed of my people. And even if, let's pretend for a minute that I was the descendant of the biggest, baddest, aristocratic slave-owning family in the United States history. Let's say those were my ancestors. They're not, but for the sake of argument, pretend that's who I come from for a minute. Let me ask you this. How in the fuck do I apologize to the dead for something that I had nothing to do with? How does that work? How do you apologize to a dead person for something you had nothing to do with? I think that the African slave trade is arguably, the African slave trade and the almost genocide of the native population here are the 2 biggest social blemishes that this country ever had. I mean, there are many more, and again, some of which I can't get into. I'll get booted off of here. But as far as what's widely known, the African slave trade and the genocide of native peoples, 2 biggest scars on American history. And it is shameful. Not that any of us had anything to do with it. Not that any of us were victimized by it. But to know that it happened here is sad. You know? It's sad. But as I said before, we've made some serious strides in the last 150 years in this country. So in the last 50 years. Some serious strides. We live in a country today where a man of at least partial African descent can be the fucking president. We live in a country today where if 2 women or 2 men fall in love and they want to get married and have a monogamous lifestyle, they can do that. It's finally legally recognized. And frankly speaking, for whatever moral convictions some people have about that, it's not the point. It's that the government doesn't have the right to define the institution of marriage. I supported the Gay Marriage Act for that reason. It's not the government's place. It's the same reason that I personally, I don't like abortion, for example. I think it's often misused. I certainly don't like late-term abortion. Hell, I was a 10-week preemie baby. I almost died. I've heard of people getting abortions past the 10-week mark, and I lived. I don't like it. It scares me. It's sad, but I'm pro-choice. And I'm pro-choice for the simple reason that it's not the government's place to tell someone what to do with their fucking body. It just isn't. You give government power, too much media influence and all this mess, and you get what we have today. Government's hog wild with power, drunk on it. And people talk about, well, the government doesn't control the media. Yeah, no shit. But who funds the goddamn government? Who staffs the party ranks? Who contributes to these campaigns and has these $150,000 plate dinners? You don't have to govern it. They own it. They pay for it. Do I have to tell you what to do if I'm feeding you? No. You'll do what you're pretty sure won't piss me off and will keep the fucking food coming, right? Common sense, man. Common fucking sense. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you guys on here forever. I had to rant for a minute because I'm so sick and tired of this neo-Nazi, neo-commie shit. We're headed for a fucking civil war, and it's the stupidest fucking thing. It's for nothing, man. It's for nothing. I talk to older folks, and hell, I'm even old enough now. I remember as a small kid, man, I didn't hear all this white American, black American, gay American, straight American, Christian American, Jewish American, Muslim American. I just heard American. And I missed that.